Once upon a time there was a princess named Elena. Her father was the king of Riva country. S. mother died a few years after Elena's mother was a very great magician. Elena was married early. Elena was married to a prince named Helen. Elena was very fond of gardens, so she always used to roam in her garden. There was a jungle in front of that garden where everybody was not allowed to go. When Elena was once walking in the garden, she heard a sound from the forest as if someone was calling her. When she looked, she saw something coming from the forest. A very cute rabbit came from the jungle. He called Elena by her name. Elena was shocked to hear her name from the rabbit's mouth. The shocking thing was that Elena was able to understand the rabbit's language. Elena asks the rabbit his name, and the rabbit tells him his name. The rabbit's name is Raman. Elena asks him how he knows her name. At first, the rabbit does some trickery because he feels that Elena will not believe him, but later he tells that he is a friend of Elena's mother, and he was also a magician. A witch converted him into a rabbit. Elena did not know how to react to the rabbit's word. At first, she thought that the rabbit was lying to her, but later the rabbit told her something about her mother. Hearing this, Elena was convinced that Raman was her mother's friend. Elena became emotional remembering her mother. Elena did not even know the reason behind her mother's death. Later, Raman tells her the reason behind her mother's death. Raman tells her that when Elena was very small, he and Elena's mother were very good friends. Both of them were trying to invent some magical power so that they could do good for that kingdom. But Helen came to know about this. Helen was Elena's mother's cousin. She used to do black magic. Helen fought a lot with us because she wanted to become powerful by misusing that power. Raman tells that he and Elena's mother did not approve of this because if Helen got hold of that power, she would become the most powerful person and would rule over the whole world. Elena's mother died while fighting. Somehow Raman's life was saved, but he was turned into a rabbit. Helen had no idea that Raman had survived. Raman tells Elena the further story that he tried to find Helen all these years, but he could not because all his magical power was gone. But now Raman wanted Elena's help so that he could be transformed back into a human being. The evening passed while talking to Raman. Now Elena had to return to her house. But Elena promised Raman that she will return tomorrow morning so that Raman can tell her why he needs Elena's help. Helen fought a lot with us because she wanted to become powerful by misusing that power. Next morning, Elena returns to the garden and starts waiting for Raman. After some time, Raman also arrives. Then Elena asks Raman about the plan of action. Elena had magical powers, but she herself did not know this. Raman knew about this because Elena's mother had given the power to Elena before her death. Raman's first task was to make Elena know about her powers so that she could be able to fight Helen. Raman tells Elena that she will have to practice to fight Helen because Helen has become even more powerful now. Helen will be working on her powers for so many years so that she can take over this world. Next morning, Elena returns to the garden and starts waiting for Raman.
Raman asks Elena if she will take revenge of her mother's death by fighting with Helen. Elena agrees to fight with Helen, but Raman warns her that her life can be lost in the fight. But Elena gets emotional remembering her mother and wants to take revenge from Helen. From that day onwards, Raman teaches Elena some things and tries to bring out Elena's magical power. His mother was a very good magician, so Elena had her mother's powers. After a few days of hard work, Elena had learned a lot about her powers. Now she was ready to fight Helen. Now Rabbit Raman brings him some pieces of paper. That paper looks like a puzzle. He tells Elena that this is the way to reach Helen. If you solve this puzzle, then we will reach Helen easily. Elena and Raman's aim was to stop Helen from becoming powerful. Raman and Elena both start solving the puzzle together, and they come to know that the way to reach Helen is through the jungle, where it was forbidden to go. Now Elena understands why no one comes back after going to that jungle. Because Helen was hidden somewhere in the jungle, and if any person went into the jungle, she would kill them. Raman the rabbit and Elena now set out in search of Helen. As they moved towards the jungle became darker and denser. They tried to find the way and again got confused. They were unable to understand whether they were on the right path or not. After a lot of effort and some tricks, they find Helen's hideout. When they reach there, they smell a very foul smell. Then they see that there are a lot of dead bodies lying there. Those dead bodies belong to those people who went to the jungle and never returned. Seeing such a scene, Elena gets a little scared because she was seeing all this for the first time. Raman the rabbit and Elena now set out in search of Helen. Elena and Raman the rabbit move forward. That place seemed very dark. They hear someone's voice, so they watch quietly. They see Helen, who is meditating so that she can increase her powers. As soon as Helen opens her eyes, she goes towards a glass jar and starts talking to herself. Helen had imprisoned Elena's mother's soul in that glass jar. Her purpose was to take Elena's mother's powers, so she had kept her soul imprisoned for so many years. But she was unsuccessful in taking her powers because Elena's mother had given all the powers to Elena before dying. Helen had no idea about this. Elena and Raman the rabbit move forward. That place seemed very dark. When Elena is listening to Helen's conversation, she realizes that Helen is talking to her mother. She is surprised to see that Helen has been keeping her mother's soul for so many years. Elena is very sad and tears start to flow from her eyes. The rabbit consoles her and says that we have to take revenge from Helen so that your mother's soul can rest in peace. Elena and the rabbit both prepare to fight Helen. Now their first task was to free Elena's mother's soul from the jar. For this, they were waiting for Helen to leave from there. As soon as Helen leaves, Elena picks up the jar and tries to open it. Even after a lot of effort, the jar does not open. She also uses her magic spells, but still the jar does not break. Meanwhile, Helen reached there. Seeing Elena and the rabbit on the other side, Helen becomes happy that she got another prey. Helen did not know that she is her cousin's daughter, and she also has magical powers. As Helen moves forward to kill Elena, Elena uses her powers on her. Now Helen has become a little stunned. She understood that it is not easy to kill her. She asks Elena who you are. Elena says in anger that why did you keep my mother's soul captivated for so many years? Elena says that free my mother's soul, otherwise it will not be good for you. Helen understands that she is her cousin's daughter. Now Helen understood that the powers she was searching for so many years are with Elena. Helen thinks in her mind that if she kills Elena, then by taking all her powers, she will become the most powerful person in the world. Helen suddenly attacks Elena. The rabbit comes in front of her and the rabbit gets hurt. Seeing this, Elena gets very angry and Helen and Elena fight very fiercely. Both keep fighting for a long time and then suddenly Helen attacks Elena in such a way that Elena gets deeply hurt. Seeing Elena in danger, Helen attacks her again, but the rabbit comes in front of her and the rabbit gets badly hurt. Helen attacks Elena again, but this time she misses the target and hits the jar. The jar breaks and Elena's mother's soul is freed. Elena's mother's soul enters Elena. After that, Helen and Elena fight a lot. Its weakness was in a locket. Elena keeps attacking that locket. In the end, Helen loses and dies. Both Elena and the rabbit fainted. After Helen dies, Elena's mother's soul leaves Elena and disappears. As soon as Elena and the rabbit regain consciousness, they see that the rabbit is turned back into a human. Everything becomes normal again. Elena thanks her mother in her heart and prays for her soul's peace. And that place becomes full of greenery again.